Most people look at a small yard and see limited space. They see a lawn, a few ornamental plants, maybe a fence, a sidewalk, and they assume there simply is not enough room to grow meaningful amounts of food. But in many cases, the real problem is not the size of the land. The real problem is the design. A small yard can stay empty and unproductive for years, or it can become a layered food system that produces fruit, herbs, vegetables, flowers, compost, pollinator habitat, and even small-scale animal fertility. The difference comes from how each part of the space is used. In this video, we will break down 5 practical permaculture design strategies that can turn an ordinary suburban yard into a productive food paradise without needing a farm, a huge budget, or endless space. The first strategy is to turn edges into productive spaces. In many yards, the edges are almost completely wasted. The strip beside the sidewalk, the narrow space along the driveway, the fence line, the corner near a wall, or the border between two areas often becomes empty mulch, grass, or decorative planting. But in permaculture design, edges are valuable. An edge is where two spaces meet. It may be where sunlight hits a wall, where a path meets a garden bed, or where a fence creates protection from wind. These zones often have special conditions. And if they are designed well, they can become some of the most productive parts of a small yard. For example, a sunny sidewalk edge can support grapevines, berry bushes, herbs, flowers, and small fruit trees. These plants do not need to sit in the middle of the yard. They can climb, spread, lean, and fill vertical space. A south-facing edge can be especially powerful because hard surfaces like pavement, concrete, brick, and asphalt absorb heat during the day and slowly release it later. This creates a warmer microclimate, which can help heat-loving crops such as figs, grapes, or certain fruit trees ripen better. Another advantage is access. When fruit grows along paths and entrances, it becomes part of daily life. A person walking out the door can pick herbs. Children passing by may enjoy berries. Neighbors can see the garden, ask questions, and sometimes share in the harvest. The key idea is simple. Do not treat the borders of a yard as leftover space. Treat them as growing zones. A productive edge can provide food, shade, beauty, habitat for insects, privacy, and community connection all at the same time. In a small yard, every edge matters. The second strategy is to stop thinking of the yard as decoration first, and start thinking of it as a food-producing system. In many suburban homes, the front yard is designed to look neat, but not to feed anyone. There may be a lawn, a few shrubs, and some flowers near the entrance. It looks acceptable. But most of that space produces nothing edible. That is a missed opportunity. A small yard can grow much more food when edible plants are placed throughout the entire landscape, not hidden in one small vegetable bed at the back of the property. This does not mean every plant must be a tomato or lettuce plant. In fact, one of the most effective approaches is to combine perennial foods with small areas of annual crops. Perennial plants are valuable because they return year after year. Artichokes, berry bushes, fruit trees, rhubarb, asparagus, herbs, and many edible flowers can keep producing with less replanting than annual vegetables. Once established, many perennials also help protect the soil, support pollinators, and create structure in the garden. Annual crops still matter, but they should be placed where daily harvesting is easy. Leafy greens, herbs, tomatoes, peppers, beans, and salad crops work well near pots, doors, and kitchen access points because they are harvested often. Design also matters visually. A food garden does not have to look messy. A living archway, a curved path, a hedge of fruiting shrubs, or a border of edible flowers can make the space beautiful while still being productive. The goal is not simply to grow more plants. The goal is to make food part of the whole landscape. When edible plants are spread through the yard, the space becomes more useful, more beautiful, and more resilient. A front yard, side yard, fence line, and entrance path can all become part of the food system. The third strategy is to design for diversity, not just production. One common mistake in small food gardens is planting only the crops people want to harvest. The space may be full of vegetables, but it lacks flowers, habitat, ground cover, native plants, and structural layers. At first, This kind of garden may look productive, but over time, it often becomes more fragile. Pests appear more easily. Soil dries out faster. Pollinators may not visit consistently. And the gardener has to do more work to keep everything alive. A more resilient food system needs biodiversity. Flowers are not just decoration. They provide nectar and pollen for bees, butterflies, hoverflies, and other beneficial insects. Some of these insects help with pollination. Others help control pests by supporting natural predator and prey relationships. This is why flowers should be planted throughout the food garden, not only in one separate ornamental bed. Edible flowers can be especially useful because they serve more than one purpose. Plants such as daylilies, nasturtiums, calendula, borage, and many herb flowers can add beauty, attract insects, and sometimes provide food or medicine. Native plants are also important. A garden made only of exotic food crops may produce food, but it may not fully support the local ecosystem. Native plants are already familiar to local birds, insects, and soil life. They can provide berries, shelter, nectar, seeds, and nesting habitat. This creates a stronger ecological foundation around edible plants. Another important idea is layering. A productive yard should not be flat. It can include tall fruit or nut trees, smaller trees, shrubs, vines, herbs, flowers, ground covers, root crops, and fungi. Each layer uses a different part of the space. This is the basic idea behind a food forest. Instead of depending on one crop, the system becomes a web of many plants supporting each other. The result is not only more food. It is a healthier garden, fewer pest problems, better pollination, more beauty, and a landscape that feels alive in every direction. The fourth strategy is to think beyond the plants themselves and design for pollination. A food garden does not work in isolation. Fruit trees, berry bushes, herbs, vegetables, and flowers all depend on a larger web of insects, birds, soil organisms, and seasonal movement. Pollinators are a major part of that system. Bees, in particular, can dramatically improve fruit set in many gardens. When flowers are planted near food crops, they provide nectar and pollen. In return, bees and other pollinators move through the garden and help many plants produce more reliably. But the benefit is not only for one yard. A single bee colony can forage over a wide area. Honeybees commonly travel around 1 to 2 miles from the hive when collecting nectar and pollen, depending on food availability and conditions. That means a pollinator-friendly yard can support not just one garden, but nearby gardens, parks, trees, and wild plants as well. This is why flowers should be treated as infrastructure, not decoration. A garden with continuous blooms across the seasons creates a more stable food source for pollinators. Early flowers, summer herbs, berry blossoms, fruit tree flowers, and late-season blooms all help keep beneficial insects active. For people who do not keep bees, the same principle still applies. Plant flowers. Protect habitat. Avoid unnecessary pesticides. When pollinators are supported, the whole food system becomes stronger, and a small yard becomes part of a much larger neighborhood ecosystem. The fifth strategy is to connect animals, soil, and annual crops into one cycle. In many gardens, animals are kept separate from the growing space. Chickens stay in one fixed coop, vegetable beds stay in another area, and the gardener does all the work of weeding, fertilizing, pest control, and soil preparation by hand. But in a better designed system, chickens can become part of the garden's maintenance crew. The key is rotation. Instead of leaving chickens in one place all year, the yard can be divided into different zones. At certain times of the year, chickens are allowed into one area after crops have finished. They scratch through mulch, eat weed seeds, search for insects and larvae, break down plant debris, and add manure to the soil. Then, before the next crop is planted, the chickens are moved out. This gives the garden time to absorb the fertility without the chickens damaging young plants. When done carefully, this system can reduce several jobs at once. The chickens help manage weeds. They help cycle nutrients. They help disturb compacted mulch. They can reduce some pest pressure by eating insect eggs and larvae. And in return, they receive forage, shade, scratching space, and a more interesting environment. This is especially useful in a small annual garden. Annual crops such as kale, beans, squash, tomatoes, corn, herbs, and leafy greens often need rich soil and regular care. If the soil has been improved by compost, mulch, and controlled animal rotation, these crops can grow more vigorously with fewer outside inputs. The important point is timing. Chickens are helpful when they are used at the right stage of the cycle. They are destructive if they are released into delicate young crops. So the solution is not simply to add animals. The solution is to design their movement. The sixth strategy is to create microclimates. This is one of the most important ideas for small space food production because not every part of a yard has the same conditions. One corner may be hot and dry. Another may be shaded and cool. A wall may reflect heat. A fence may block wind. A paved surface may store warmth during the day and release it slowly at night. Instead of treating the whole yard as one uniform space, a good design studies these small differences and uses them wisely. For example, sun-loving crops should be placed where they receive the strongest light. Heat-loving fruits, such as figs, grapes, or some citrus in protected conditions, can benefit from warm walls, concrete, brick, or other heat-absorbing surfaces. At the same time, plants that prefer cooler or moister conditions can be placed where taller trees, shrubs, or structures create partial shade. Tree placement is also important. In a small yard, large trees should not randomly block the best growing areas. They need to be arranged so they provide shelter, habitat, and beauty while still allowing sunlight to reach productive garden beds. This is sometimes called designing for solar access. A greenhouse is another way to create a microclimate. Even a simple greenhouse made from recycled or low-cost materials can extend the growing season, protect sensitive plants, and create a warmer space for crops that would struggle outdoors. In cooler climates, a greenhouse may not stay tropical all winter, but it can still reduce frost damage and help plants survive. Microclimates allow a small yard to grow a wider range of food. The lesson is simple. Do not fight the conditions of the yard. Read them. Then place each plant where it has the best chance to thrive. The final lesson is that a productive yard is not only about food. It is about quality of life. When a home is surrounded by plants, flowers, birds, insects, soil life, and fresh food, the space begins to feel different. It becomes calmer, more useful, and more connected to the natural world. A small yard will never produce everything a family needs. It may not grow all the grain, oil, salt, or calories required for complete self-sufficiency. That is important to understand. But it can still make a meaningful difference. It can provide fresh herbs, berries, fruit, greens, eggs, flowers, compost, pollinator habitat, and seasonal abundance. It can reduce part of the grocery bill. More importantly, it can provide food at the highest possible freshness, sometimes harvested only minutes before eating. There is also a community benefit. When food grows near sidewalks, fences, and front yards, it becomes visible. Neighbors ask questions, children notice berries, surplus tomatoes, herbs, eggs, or fruit can be shared. A garden becomes more than a private space. It becomes a small point of connection. Now imagine this idea multiplied. If more cities and suburbs used even a fraction of their lawns, edges, fences, driveways, and front yards for food production, the impact would be significant. Less dependence on long-distance shipping, more local freshness, more pollinator habitat, more resilient neighborhoods. The solution does not have to begin with a farm. It can begin with one edge, one fruit tree, one herb bed, one patch of flowers. A food paradise is not created overnight, but with thoughtful design, even an ordinary yard can become a living system that feeds people, supports nature, and brings more abundance into everyday life.